Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jenny Lawson, the Chief Civic Innovation Officer at Points of Light.
I'm Jeff Ader, the Senior Manager of Business Innovation at Points of Light.
Thanks so much for taking the time to learn a little bit more about how your company can be a part of the Civic 50 in Orange County. We're delighted to have worked with Orange County around the Civic 50 for the last 5 years. The Civic 50 itself is a decades-old national initiative recognizing companies with revenue of over $1 billion. But we quickly learned that so much is happening at the local level in communities that we really want an opportunity to recognize and celebrate and provide support to companies of all sizes who are doing great work in their community. And so we've partnered with Orange County. They were one of our first innovation partners to bring the Civic 50 down to a scale and a format that helps local companies get recognized for all the great things that they're doing. So the Civic 50 itself is a self-administered survey, self-reported survey. It's all online. The questions in the Civic 50 are quantitative, so you get a true peer-to-peer benchmark and feedback on your answers and on your responses to the question. The survey itself is free to take, and the risk to you is pretty minimal because only those companies who make the Civic 50 are actually made public. So you can gather a lot of learning, even if you think you're pretty new to civic engagement or have a relatively new program. So we really invite you to jump in. At the regional level, the Civic 50 is organized into small, medium, and large companies. And so you're always recognized and measured in company of your peers, not against the big brands who may have a lot more staff and a lot more resources. So the Civic 50 itself is organized into 4 key areas. We call them the 4 pillars, the 4 I's. The first one is investment, which is how is your company engaging in community through its time, talent, financial support, cash, in-kind giving, and leadership. The second is around integration. How do you understand your civic action relative to the way your business operates? So how does it connect to your marketing messages, to how you recruit employees, to how you talk about and choose vendors and sales associates, and how do you engage and celebrate civic action with your customers? Institutionalization is a little bit more those policies and procedures inside the organization that help that culture of civic engagement stick. So how are you writing performance goals with your employees around the things they do in community? How are you supporting employees with paid time off for volunteering, for voting? How are you developing reporting to your board of directors, to your founders, to your partners about the work that you're doing in community? And finally, impact, which is how is your company measuring the social and business impact of its engagement program? Not biggest is best, not most is best, but really, are you measuring it? Are you becoming aware as a business leader of the impact that your engagement has on your community partners, with your community partners, and on your business and on the operations inside your business? And so I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to tell you a little bit more about how we do this and how you can join us. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Jenny. So we'll dive into these dimensions a little bit deeper now to give you a sense of what to expect. And we do make all of the questions available in both in a Word document and Google document. So you can actually look at all the questions before you start the survey. And a lot of companies find it useful to capture their data offline before entering them into the online survey. So the first section is the investment dimension. And again, this is going to be probably the most straightforward. So investment of time, so employee volunteerism, resources, both financial contributions and grants, as well as in-kind resources, as well as advocacy and public leadership. And so with volunteerism, some of the data that you're going to need, the number of volunteers, hours, and type. both hands-on direct as well as kind of skills-based and pro bono. And we ask for a 12-month reporting period for companies taking the survey, but you can choose what 12 months that is, recognizing companies are on a different fiscal and calendar year. As long as you're consistent throughout the survey, that will work. Again, cash contributions and grants, in-kind contributions, both goods and services, and then public leadership and advocacy activities. The second section is integration. And again, this is going to be how your community engagement and social impact work shows up in other business functions and departments, how it's baked into the rest of your business. And for each of these business functions, marketing, PR, skill and leadership development, recruiting, diversity and inclusion, employee engagement, and purchasing and supply chain, we're going to ask the same questions for each of those sections. And we're really trying to get at what degree and sophistication your company has integrated its community engagement and social impact work. And so the options from the highest level of it being formal and strategic to more informal and implemented on a limited basis. The next section is the institutionalization section. And this, similar to integration, but this is really how you're baking your community engagement and social impact into your policies, your procedures, your systems, KPIs, even employee performance reviews. So some of the key questions that we'll ask in this section are around input from community partners and nonprofits that you work with, how your leadership is engaged, both participating in community engagement work and also with presenting to them, whether that could be a board meeting or a senior executive meeting, employee engagement programs and incentives. So really how you're incorporating community engagement and social impact into existing employee engagement programs. And lastly, voting and civic engagement. So really how you're supporting your employees as civic participants in the local community. And lastly is impact value. And like Jenny mentioned, this is not measuring which company has the largest impact, but really trying to get at how your company measures its impact. And so for this, you're going to see the same kind of program categories that were mentioned in the integration dimension. So things like volunteerism, contribution and grants, in-kind contributions, leadership and advocacy, and racial equity. And these are the categories that will show up in the investment section. So the first section of the survey. And here we're looking at, for each of these, what degree, how are you measuring the impact? And so the lowest level here would be more just kind of informal, anecdotal, all the way up to quantitative outcome metrics, really looking at the ultimate desired effect, how your work is making an impact on those. Quantitative outputs, these are often more common. So with volunteerism, that would include things like the number of volunteers, the number of hours that went into it, the things that really drive the outcomes. And we like to remind companies that they should not be expected to answer the highest level answer for all of these. It's really a journey for companies. And some of them they may be able to do, and some may be easier than others. Other ones they may need to really work with their nonprofit partners to start to get at those higher level outcomes. If you do answer the top level response, quantitative outcome metric, we do ask for a brief example of the metric that you measure, just to make sure that everything aligns with the correct terminology. So here's an example in the impact section that we'd like to walk through. Let's say your company has an after-school volunteering program at a local school. So anecdotal, non-quantitative information, this would just be a success story captured by a teacher, maybe shared with the program team, a testimonial that you may have captured or heard from a program participant. Quantitative outputs really gets at kind of what is being done. So on the student side, that could be metrics like the number enrolled, the number of sessions attended. On the volunteer side, it could be the number of employees participating in this volunteer program. As we continue to move up towards higher level outcome measurements, qualitative outcome measures, these can be predefined satisfaction metrics that are part of a standard and regularly implemented data collection process. And so surveys often help get it this level. And so in this example, a survey given to students to capture their satisfaction level with the tutoring program and get their feedback, both quantitative and maybe more qualitative success stories or feedback. Really, it gets us closer to understanding, is our program having that desired outcome effect? And lastly, quantified outcomes. This is really getting at the ideal goal for this activity. And so in this case, we're not just looking to help students, but we're actually looking to increase their testing scores or grades. And so being able to track, and that might be working with the school or other nonprofit and community partners to really start tracking and collecting this information. So here's a quick snapshot of what you'll see when you start this survey. And if it's your first time logging in, you'll get a pop-up box to put in your email. And once you sign in, it's going to give you a unique URL. It'll also email it to you. And you can bookmark that URL, save it. And anytime you want to return to your survey, you can use that link. And if there are other people working on the survey at your company, you can share that exact link and they'll be able to edit the same survey application. Once you're in, you'll see the dimensions on the left sidebar. You do have to answer questions in each section before advancing. So that's why we often encourage companies to collect their data offline before entering it all in. If you do want to jump ahead, you can always put in kind of placeholder data or not available and advance through this survey. There is a print survey button that will save a PDF that you can print if you need to review it. At the bottom, you can also advance to the next or previous section. Every time you do, it will automatically save your survey. And you can also save and exit, which will prompt you with the link again. If you're having technical issues, in the bottom right-hand corner, there's a help button that will let you submit an issue, and it'll create a ticket, and someone from True Impact will follow up with you. So that's it. We really appreciate all the work that OneOC is putting into this partnership, and we're excited to have companies participate and hope you'll consider taking the survey. Thanks.